Welcome to the Canadian Business Quarterly podcast, where we speak with Canada's most influential industry leaders on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all of our content, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.thecbq.ca and clicking on subscribe.
Today's guest is Jean Desjardins, founder and owner of consulting engineering firm Desjardins Expert Conseil, or DEC. Founded in the year 2000, the company is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Jean himself has 33 years experience as a practicing multidisciplinary engineer, having built an enviable reputation in 3 disciplines of engineering: mechanical building systems, electrical building systems, and civil hydrology engineering. His firm now employs 42 people and is one of the most sought after in Quebec. He is proud to say his 2 sons followed in his footsteps, his oldest Samuel working as a mechanical engineer, and youngest Marc Olivier finishing his 3rd year in mechanical engineering at the University ETS. Jean, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Thanks a lot. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you. So, firstly, tell us a little bit more about your company.
Well, it started off in 2000. I worked as an engineer with my father initially when I graduated, and he was a consulting engineer himself. So I'm second generation engineers, and my sons are third generation engineers. But so I worked with my dad till 2000, and my dad kind of retired off, and I started off the company, changed the name, and decided to get a new beginning going. So I started in 2000 in my bedroom. And 7 years later, we were 6 in the office. My wife said I was taking too much place, and so I moved out and got into an office in Laval. And now we're 45 employees with an 8,000 square foot facility, and we're very, very much in demand and very happy of the progression we had.
Yeah, excellent. From that growth, I think when we had the chance to speak originally, your footprint extends beyond Quebec now. I think you mentioned that you have the ability to work in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia as well these days.
Yes, actually, we are practicing. We have the right to practice engineering in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, Alberta, Northwest Territories, so we are doing projects right now in Ottawa as we're speaking. We're doing a 20-story building, multi-residential building, and an 8-story building in Ottawa. And we have a project in the agricultural division in New Brunswick. So that's what is going on right now outside of Quebec.
Right. Okay. During the introduction, you talked about 3 disciplines that you can specialize in. Do you want to just provide a bit of an overview again of what those are, how they work, and how they might complement each other within your business?
So obviously, building engineering or buildings is like a human body, right? So in the human body, you need heat, you need to cool, you need water, you need to drain. Well, the building has those same needs. So mechanical engineering will take the part of the plumbing of the building itself and the HVAC of the building, the heating, the cooling, the ventilation. So the building has to breathe, the building has to drain, and the building needs water. So the mechanical engineer treats the building as such so a human can live inside the building and be functional and be comfortable. And the electrical engineer has to connect and bring power to all these equipments that are providing cooling or pumping water through the plumbing system in the building. So the electrical engineer has to provide power to all those systems, has to provide lighting so people can see, and has to provide power to electrical baseboards so people can heat themselves, and has to connect itself to a power grid that supplies power to all these buildings. So an electrical engineer complements the mechanical engineer. And the civil engineer, the civil engineer will connect all that's coming out of the building to the municipal services. Such as the sewers, so and also the cities with have nowadays a lot of problem with stormwater management because storms are getting more frequent. There's a lot more water involved in each storm, so it's creating and there's more and more impermeable surfaces, meaning that we're developing a lot. So as we develop, we get rid of grass and we create asphalt. Well, the water does not seep in the ground anymore. It stays on the surface. So you have to capture that water and you have to manage it and not reject it all at one time in the sewers. So we have to do stormwater management around our buildings and do storm retention. So create basins to retain the stormwater so that we don't evacuate all the stormwater from our land into the sewers and create problems in terms of being able to the city being able to manage all that water. So that's how all these disciplines work together.
Interesting. I think you'd say you guys are doing something like over 100 projects at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, the last year was actually a record year, and we finished with 159 projects, and for a staff of 45, it's a big mandate, and very proud to say that we're able to accomplish that with success, and I'm very proud of that. And this year, we're already starting with a boom. We've already signed many new big projects in Quebec, and we're hiring right now. So anybody that's listening, we're looking for good mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and technicians, and draftspeople. We offer amazing conditions.
And what would be, 159 projects, I think you said, what would typically be the scope? What's the dollar range from the lower end up to the higher end that you're working on?
It could be a due diligence on a building because a client wants to buy an industrial building or a commercial building, and he wants to know if the mechanical systems and the electrical systems are up to par so that he knows what he's investing in. So he'll call us and ask us to do a due diligence on the building to give him an assessment of the building, and that would be a small mandate that could maybe range in the $10,000 fees, where we could have a project where we're doing a 750-story building, 700 units in a 50-story building, where fees could go up to $500,000. So it really depends on the project itself and the scope of work that is asked from us.
Okay. There's a range of different firms that work within the engineering space. As a company, where do you think that your difference lies?
Well, I think the fact that we are not a public company, so we don't have a bunch of investors prying into what we're doing and trying to squeeze every cent out of the client and out of the profits that we make to fill their pockets, if you wish. We're a private company. Actually, I am the owner and the founder of the company. So I am very conscious of the success of the company, and its administrative part is the secret to maintaining a healthy company, because the people that work in the company have to be well paid, they have to be recognized, and they are the reason why the company has a success. I am very competent. I have a lot of experience, and I'm very good with my hands, but I only have two hands. So for a company to be successful, it can only be successful with its human capital. And its human capital is the humans he works with. So the people that I work with are not employees. They're collaborators. They're my associates. They're the reason why this company works. They follow my mission. They agree with how I perceive the business and the profession. And they ride that horse right beside me, and we all ride at the same pace, at the same speed, for the same objectives. And the objective is to make our client happy and to make sure that the people that do this work are happy doing it. So we have a very good formula, and the turnover in my office is very small because people are happy to work with me, and they don't have to deal with big management and big corporate management. I take the decisions, and I take them with their counsel.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the projects that you actually work on as a company. Would people have seen or recognize any of the buildings that you've done?
Yes, I go downtown Montreal. Obviously, there are many buildings that we've done that stand out. So yes, absolutely. There are many projects in Montreal that I could name that do stand out, like M9 Phase 4 in Old Montreal. There's Bassin du Nouveau Havre in Griffintown that we're building right now. We're just started to build a 47-story building right across from the Bell Center, where the Canadians play. So yeah, and another thing, there's a lot of new demographics happening in Montreal because the demographics are changing. A lot of new immigrants are coming from everywhere and landing in Montreal, and are creating a big demand for residential areas. And so the condo and the rental business in Montreal is booming, and for that means we're building taller towers because the city has to densify their lots because there's no more land. So for land to be productive to house people, well, you have to densify in height. So we're seeing more and more tall buildings developing downtown Montreal, and this is very exciting for us as engineers because all the tall buildings were happening in Toronto and in Vancouver, but now it's happening in Montreal. So we're very excited, and we're happy to participate in that.
I think as well, with the legalization of cannabis, you guys are doing a building for a client who's developing within that space as well, aren't you?
Yes, I'm very happy that you mentioned that. Actually, yes, there's no shame in talking about cannabis anymore. Obviously, because it's a legal substance now, and it should have been done a long time ago because it's been a lot of people have been hiding. And have been accused of using this product, which shouldn't have been the case. But anyways, now that it is legal. Well, obviously it's a new market, it's an emerging market, and all the big players are involved. I mean, all the pharmaceuticals are involved, all the food industry is involved because they want a piece of the market because they want to put their hands on CBD. CBD is the most sought out product from the plant itself, not the THC. The recreational market is not the big market. It's a small market versus the CBD market, which is more apt to appeal to the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry and the cosmetic industry. So this oil is what we're looking for. So so there's a lot of demand for that. So obviously to extract oil from a plant, we have to grow the plant. So it starts with the growing. So we have since the last 4 years have been involved in over 20 projects of inside growing facilities for growing cannabis, and in these facilities we also include spaces for transformation of the plant. Transformation meaning that we extract oils from the plant to purify it, to sell it to industries like the pharma industry and the food industry and the cosmetic industry, to use them to create byproducts that we're seeing already on tablets now. We're seeing Lipsil, Lipsil for the lips. We're seeing chanvre. How do you say it in English? Hemp. We're seeing hemp being introduced, hemp oil being introduced in all kinds of products right now, and CBD oils being introduced in all kinds of different products right now. So yeah, it's an emerging industry, and we are one of the pioneers in Quebec and Canada in this field, and so we're very proud about that. And this is, as I said, this is a new emerging product. So it's a new emerging science, because there was no science into this. It was all the people that grew this plant before did it obscurely in their basements. Now they're out in the open, and these are the people that are advising us on how to grow the plant. But it's not a scientific. It was not a scientific process. We are developing it into a scientific process and creating data and getting the science to evolve, to better the product and to help the industry to evolve.
We're starting to get towards the end now, but when we originally had the chat about doing this story, we were talking about some industry issues that are taking place that people like myself would generally be unaware of. And I distinctly remember building codes and aesthetics around buildings. Do you want to just tell our listeners sort of about what's happening within the industry?
Well, well, first of all, the agricultural industry is evolving, because land is scarcer. Agricultural land is scarcer. So how do we address this issue? Because obviously we can't take acres and acres of land anymore to grow wheat. I'm going to talk about wheat. I'm going to talk about corn. I'm going to talk about anything that requires a large surface and where we do seasonal growing. Well, this is becoming more and more complicated because the planet is producing more humans, so we need place to house them. So we're using agricultural land for that. So how do we solve this problem? Well, we have to rethink about how we do agriculture, and we have to do agriculture vertically, meaning that instead of building a 20-story building for housing people, we'll build a 20-story building and per floor have different type of products that we're growing. So we're going to grow vertically in buildings inside and control our environment compared to having a more hostile environment outside. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying and where I'm going with this. When there's a big rainstorm or there's a big flood, our crops are lost. If we grow inside, we don't have to worry about storms because we're controlling our environment. So we can grow year round, and even in cold climates, and being able to produce products that are well controlled and maintained and monitored. So so the world is changing in terms of agriculture because of those issues that we're living, because we're seeing Mother Nature going a little crazy right now. And so all our past is not representative of what's going on right now and what's going to happen in the future. So we have to rethink how we cultivate our food and how we grow our food. So we're involved in that. And as for aesthetics, well, obviously, buildings and the aesthetics of buildings are always an issue in cities because they want to have their image. It's like the portrait of a person. So when you get into a city, you see a building and you want it to be appealing. So obviously, aesthetics of a building is becoming more and more of an issue, and the cities are very critical on architectural that create the envelope of that building. So we're seeing a lot of that, and that creates a bit of issues with mechanical engineers because when we're doing ventilation, many times we have issues where we need to bring in fresh air or evacuate air from the building. Well, for that you need grills, and these grills, these louvers, are usually on the facade of a building. They're not necessarily pretty, so we have to be more creative on how to marry or unite the envelope with those louvers so that it becomes more appealing to the eye and not more of an eyesore. So this is it.
Okay. Well, Jean, before we finish up today, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Good question. I've talked a lot about so much that, oh my God, I think I am,
Pretty good?
yeah, I think I'm pretty good. What do you think?
I think so. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, look, I appreciate your time today.
This has been a production of the Canadian Business Quarterly, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Canadian Business Quarterly, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.thecbq.ca and clicking on subscribe.